Okay. That's Tito, by the way, but we want to hear him talk. I really want to share this with you. It's on our website.
It's not going. So you won't know.
The tree lines.
Yeah, I went to the farm, the tree line. It's gonna be the fall planting of the microforest. It's gonna be.
That'd be nice.
Unless he does. Well, you know what, I'm gonna keep talking to him. But I wish you could see, I wish you could see what I can see, but.
Yeah, sorry. No, I really want you to be, Tamas worked so hard to get the cables and make the connections, and we tried the video, but we didn't try the audio. I assumed, you should never assume anything about anything.
Don't need the audio.
It does have subtitles.
I know, but to hear, it does, but to hear, especially Tino's voice,
Yeah.
is special.
It was muted. Okay. Okay, we won't waste time then.
Is it on your website?
It's on our website, so, and I highly recommend it, it's beautiful. And what it shows is,
Photos, let's see the, let's see.
I think the sound is running to work.
hmm?
I think it was working. Yeah.
Okay, let's try.
Maybe you could talk over it as we're.
Okay, all right, I'll talk over it. Okay. Well, one of the most amazing and beautiful. Okay.
Speaker on the computer, put the microphone.
No sounds, unfortunately.
Put the speaker on the computer and put the microphone next to it.
You don't need this.
Yes, there it is.
Good idea.
The Andes runs from Venezuela south of Patagonia. It's one of the main watersheds and provides all the water for this continent. Previously, it was full of forest. I have been doing conservation for the past 32 years. I was so really disappointed not seeing actual action. Everybody knows that the deforestation is winning the battle. We are losing a lot of glaciers. Also, water is less every year. But when we put trees around the Andes, we are helping to secure the water balance and preventing the climate change. For me, being an ecopreneur, I want to do something real on the ground. In 2014, I talked with my partners and the local communities, and we sent a message for the entire world. planted more than 57,000 trees in a single day. I'm an Inca descendant from a family that was part of the founders of the Inca Empire. The meaning of my second name, Auca, means warrior. My grandfather told me, you're a warrior. You must fight. You must do something for us. To fight against the climate change, we need big action. Restoration needs a lot of people to put millions of trees on the highlands along the Andes. We started the first restoration program with the local communities and started to grow more and more. At the beginning, Action Andina was a dream, my special dream. But to become a reality, I identified that I'm not going to do alone. I need fundraisers, I need leaders, I need people working on the ground.
I met Tino back in 2018. He invited me to come to one of his bigger reforestation festivals. This was a tipping point in my life. Tino opened up and said, my dream is to take the work I've been doing all across the Andes. Me and the co-founders of the Forest Generation, we were so inspired, and we basically committed to Tino, we're going to help you do this.
When you live all the years that I have, you can see easily who can have the same hair that you have. Seeing the eyes of this green eagle, I say, this is
Forests, especially high-yielding forests and ecosystems, capture a lot of water. This is incredibly important for local communities.
Allí compañero uno baja no vai que baja más vida casi uno manta vida casi tiene que ser importante que reunión no tantos no después allí mi compañero que ya está que cope ante importante mana mo esto choco la china de ana para o yo acción ante nada no vai que ari então minha cambiar e minha planta pepas minha outro que minha chica minha skin classe esqueci obrigada importante que vida aku kuna nyaki planta cuidarinya aku kuna ta aku kuna ta alat lagi planta itu
Tino knows so many leaders across the Andes. He wanted to bring them together to create an initiative. This was the start of Global Forest Generation and Action Andina. We knew that Tino couldn't do it alone. We knew that the local communities couldn't do it alone. We really began thinking about the scaling issue. So we were looking at all the forests that needs to be restored and find the funds, the resources, the entire support system that would enable those local leaders to sustain and grow their project over time.
We are on 4,500 meters above sea level. The community trees are going to provide the surface that the moss are going to need to grow and to capture more water, providing all the water that the fertile valleys are going to require.
With increasing climate change, glaciers are melting. Water security is becoming a huge issue for local communities, for cities down below, even for capital cities of South America. Natural ecosystems and forests are the only natural substitutes to water capture capacities of the glaciers.
All these communities on those highlands, the main economic activity is the agriculture. If you save the forest, you save the wetlands also. Action Andina is going to save water, sequester carbon, provide more biodiversity, and of course, save the entire culture of this area. But Action Andina is not just a program of planting trees.
Throughout the field, I work with environmental education, teaching the kids how to save Mother Earth, and also why it's important for them. You know, we let all the communities, especially the kids, feel like more involved. It gives me hope because I know that these kids, when they're going to grow up, they're going to teach also the babies how to protect the forest, protect the animals, and protect us.
The first year of Accident Nina, we planted 150,000 trees. The next year was 500,000 trees. The year after, over 1 million trees. In the fourth year, over 2 million trees. This is just the beginning of Accident Nina.
The Killaraymi is the festival of planting polygamous trees. More than 150 people between all the leaders, musicians and dancers. We united in a single place where we are going to discuss about what we are going to produce, who is going to receive the restoration program with Action Andina. The first thing that you are going to hear or see is musicians, dancers. What is a party? Everybody's coming to plan happiness. Carrying more than 20,000 seedlings of polylepis, climbing up of the mountains. We plant all of them in a single day. Native forest is going to work as a home for other species, small plants, moisture, and other things, to try to generate the water balance that we are trying to achieve.
Working with these communities, especially with the kids, walking through the mountains and through the forest. I cannot find a word to describe how I'm feeling. It's just amazing.
Accident Nina's goal to restore 1 million hectares of high-end ecosystems and forests over the next 25 years is an aspirational goal. It allows people to think big. It allows people to come together to see collective action. Accident Nina started as a project. It is now becoming a movement. It is transcending borders, governments, communities, and that movement is going to change the world.
This revolution needs a lot of entrepreneurs with a lot of engagement and passion. Only in that way we are going to protect this Mother Earth.
I'm really glad we got to work. Thank you. Okay, so York, I guess we could have the lights back on again. But there are a couple themes in this film that I just wanted to draw attention to. So at the very beginning, there was some text, and of course the pictures kind of said this, but without using the words about Inca Inca principles that Tino Auca has reminded the people about that they had forgotten, many of whom had forgotten, was a really important part of their heritage, and that is Aini and Minka. And Aini and Minka mean working together for the common good. And it means both working for Mother Earth, which they call Pachamama, but it also means working together. And it's such an incredible concept that, again, transcends borders, transcends cultures. And when we started thinking about, what initiatives Global Forest Generation might do next, we found that there are many cultures that they use different words, but it's embedded in their culture to work together. And somehow we have lost that in the developed world, to be, just everybody trying to get their own at the expense of the other. But in these cultures where there's very little formal education, if any, there are important, well, let's say profound truths that they know. And the idea of working together, communities will decide, okay, which community lands will we work on this year, and they decide together. And what goes around comes around, and everybody benefits. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I'm really glad that Salesforce decided that the production team for Salesforce decided to focus on the water so much. You saw all that water. And what's really amazing is that in a number of areas where they started the reforestation a few years ago, streams have reappeared that weren't there. Like, it really works. The people are so excited. But beyond that, the people are watching the glaciers melt. They can just see it from where they live. They just go outside. And it's not like you are an old person, that you're a grandparent or something, or a young grandparent or an old grandparent, and seeing, oh my gosh, the glaciers used to extend down the mountains. Even young people in the 5 or 10 years have seen incredible melting happen. And they understand that water is a precious resource. And they also understand that by planting this particular tree, the polylepis tree, which is so amazing at absorbing moisture, but trees do that in general, but this tree happens to do it amazingly well, and it's suited to the altitude, that they are going to ensure water for their children and future generations. And this is huge, and it's not just in the Andes that this understanding has to penetrate. Even in our country, it does. And just yesterday, Trump came out with another one of his royal edicts, his executive actions to eliminate the shower heads that are the water-saving shower heads, because he can't get his hair washed properly with the ones that we now have. And that just put me in mind of, in January 2025, the United States Geological Survey did an assessment that showed that 30 million people in our country are a threat of water, of not having enough water, surface water. That's 30 million people. And I don't even know how much publicity that got, but the United States Geological Survey is one of the many parts of the government that Trump is shutting down. So we won't have the assessments. And unlike the people in the Andes who don't need an assessment, they can just kind of figure it out. We need to know, and we don't know. And we just think this is something that's far away, where there are droughts and it'll never be in our backyard. And maybe it won't be in Norwalk, because you're surrounded by water and all of that, and are very lucky, but in many places, it's not only that there's no water, or maybe there's water and it's polluted. So it's a bad situation, this is just an example of what we have to learn from other parts of the world and apply it. And it'll be really important to really pay attention to what's happening in other parts of the world if we don't know what's happening here. But then again, getting back to community, we can figure it out. We can, whether it's working at the local localities, working with states, or then states working together, with the tri-state area here, Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, working together. There are ways to do it, but it really requires citizen action. And we have received a wake-up call, and I hope we're going to respond to it. Oh, another mention of glaciers, which might have escaped your notice, but Venezuela, which is an Andean country that's not yet involved in Acción Andina because of the government is not conducive to our trying to have conservation happen from the outside coming into Venezuela right now. But last year, 2024, Venezuela was the first country in modern times to lose its glaciers. And, other countries are not far behind. So in the Andes, in the other countries, they're just trying to trying to capture the meltwater as it is melting from the glaciers and just not have it run off and just somehow, recycle, have it recycled into the ground. And what's really interesting about this area is that while the people in the highlands are looking to have enough water for their families and for whatever they're growing, the water actually will run down through, through the roots of the trees, sort of releasing the water to the watersheds below and reach major cities, and through underground rivers actually reach the headwaters of the Amazon. So everything is connected, and when I first imagined what the yet to be named organization would be that I hoped to be a part of, I was thinking in terms of reforestation. I wasn't thinking in terms of the greater ecosystem, which very soon after the establishment of global forest generation, we were all thinking about, that the reforestation is one part of it. The protection of existing forests is actually, that's the harder part, because, well, in the Andes, they're harder to find, but everywhere, they're the places that are ripe for destruction. And so, but you can never truly replace the original forest. So there are still patches that we're now working to protect, but the reforestation is actually kind of like a low-hanging fruit. But the protection of forests globally that still exists and haven't yet been destroyed is just like should be a major focus for governments. But unfortunately, that doesn't happen. So there should be for nonprofits that they can still stay alive over the next few years. And finally, I wanted to actually bring us back to, so you saw the community, and there are communities like this, all through the Andes, and they're so committed, and you just saw the spirit. Like when Casino says, it's a party, we're planting happiness. That's just really how they feel. Like they have such an amazing spirit. I tried when I was in the Sacred Valley in 2017 to actually climb as high as you needed to go to plant. And the elevation, wow, I mean, it's so high, it's more than 18,000 feet. And I couldn't make it all the way up, so I just sort of leaned against the tree and I just videotaped the people coming up, all ages. Mothers holding babies on their backs and also seedlings. And older women sort of weaving, like as they were walking, multitasking. It was just really amazing to see whole families come out and do this together, and just with such a wonderful spirit. And that kind of spirit is what I just hope we're going to be seeing in communities across our country. And also just really recognizing the commonalities that we have with others. And so among commonalities I recognize is that while wetlands are part of the greater ecosystem of what we're trying to do, basically linking ecosystems with other ecosystems. By ecosystem, I mean, it's not just the forest, but it's what's in the forest, it's the water, it's the rainfall, it's the sunlight, it's the wildlife, it's the people that are there, it's everything. But we're trying to, as we sort of mature, really figure out how we link ecosystems to others, and that you have amazing wetlands here. And I tried to read about at least something about Norwalk before giving this talk, and I see that you have have some regional authority, or I guess maybe town authorities that protect your water. I actually wrote down what they were because I knew I wouldn't remember. Let's see if I can find it. Too many pieces of paper. But water courses. Let me just find it. Oh, you have, you would know better than I, an inland wetland and water course agency. That the city of Norwalk is fortunate to retain a relative abundance of wetlands for an historic urban area. And that the wetlands not only provide a necessary habitat for plants and animals, but they are also vital to flood control and water quality renovation, and that your wetlands agency's responsibility is to oversee any activity that might impact a wetland ecosystem, and that Norwalk's water course agency regulates activities that may impact the Norwalk River and the 5 Mile River, as well as their tributaries. So one of my questions, and I think during the discussion, is like, how well is this working? And if it required federal money, or state money, which comes from the federal government, what the impact will be in the next few years. But it's great that you have an authority, and I was wondering whether it needs any kind of watchdog activity from residents, and I'm really interested to know, because I was thinking if I were living in Norwalk, that would be one of the things I would be checking into. And also because the federal government doesn't care now about, under Trump, doesn't care about clean waterways, how a city like Norwalk, which has 2 rivers and has streams, how you'll manage that, and how you can get together with other towns and cities through which the waterways course, and figure out how to protect them. I mean, just again, it comes back to community. There's so many, there are communities within communities. There's a larger community. I mean, there are communities for different reasons, that they get together for different reasons. But that one seemed, if I were living in Norwalk, I would look into it, and I'm curious to know if you guys already are. I'm just going to run through a couple other kind of thoughts that I had, if I could find the paper that I wrote them on, if I were living in Norwalk. And some of them you're doing, and it's so amazing, like the pocket forest. I mean, we've all learned recently that in areas that are more prosperous and have trees, you know, when the temperatures get high, it's tolerable. But in areas that are just concrete and don't have trees, the heat is intolerable. And Portland State University did a study a couple of years ago that showed that on a, quote, balmy day, in the leafy part of the city, it was 99 degrees, and in the poor part of the city, it was 126 degrees. That's the same city. It's just like, wow. I'm sure the disparity isn't like that here, but I wonder whether it is in any nearby cities, and if again, getting together with sister cities, whether that is something to think about. And I know you all here have a lot on your plate already, but that's part of like getting others involved, if that's possible to do. I also wondered about sort of if activism on zoning boards is necessary here, or whether, you know, the zoning boards are really taking sort of like the Norwalk Land Trust view into consideration. I also, if my kids were still, you know, in the public schools, I would be trying to have enrichment courses on water. I mean, because there's just so much to learn that we don't know. And sometimes maybe parents could learn from the kids. And if it can't be part of the curriculum, because it's hard to make changes in curriculums, maybe it could be after-school program. I mean, there are, you know, colleges and universities around here. Maybe there could be. It's a wonderful opportunity for some teachers to be to participate in that. I also wondered about the sounds amazing. And I remember going to the Audubon Society and doing some really cool trips with my kids. I think maybe it made more of an impression on me at the time than my children because it was a one-time thing. But one of my questions that I thought about is like, how do you sustain that? How do you get more experiential learning? Because the one day is amazing, and you're trying to get all the children to have that experience. So it's 4th grade, but like what happens in 5th grade? What happens, in the years after that? And whether more experiential learning is possible to sort of introduce. And then getting back to global forest generation, one thought that I had is if students could learn about what's happening in the Andes, whether like a school might be interested in adopting a couple villages in the Andes, like in the olden days, I think that was done, or having sister cities, and doing some kind of fundraiser, which I'm sure would get some lovely social media attention in Connecticut, but also Global Forest Generation would certainly try to promote that as well. Community gardens, which I think Landers does something with that, but what about in schools, really doing more in terms of having maybe older grades and younger grades working together to grow vegetables that they could bring home to their families? Anyway, those are just a few ideas. And then finally, like a basic idea, which actually doesn't require anybody getting off their butt at all, but it's really, really important, is our charitable donations, which obviously, the Norwalk Land Trust depends on, and all nonprofits do. It's the lifeblood of nonprofits, and and before I decided to try to do what became Global Forest Generation, my husband and I always, sort of charitable donations to worthwhile causes were uppermost for us, but I just decided I wanted to do more than that. But for people who can't do more, it's really powerful. And in terms of Global Forest Generation, like a $1,000 donation will enable the planting, the growing and the planting of like more than 500 trees, which includes providing a small salary to the women who are collecting the cuttings and doing all the growing, which takes it's like the gestation of a child. It takes like 9 months. But by the time those seedlings are ready, they're very healthy. It includes the social benefits, it includes all sorts of social benefits, like in some places people want help with building water catchment systems so that their water is cleaner. In other places, literacy programs for women. In other places, solar panels. It's just whatever the communities want or need, and they agree on it as a community. And then, of course, built into the cost, into our cost, is the monitoring as well, to be sure that the trees survive. So, all in all, I think of all of the community action together as building, is not just supporting ecosystems generally, but that all of us are an ecosystem. We're an ecosystem of collaboration, and perhaps the most important one, because without us, none of the ecosystems won't survive. So I just love thinking of my smaller community, my larger, the Venn diagram of communities that we're just all together, an ecosystem collaboration. Thank you. A little time for it. If anybody had questions or wanted to talk about Norwalk or had questions for me or questions for each other, we have a few minutes left for that. And also, if you think of anything after and wanted to email me, it's very easy to get me. Well, if you forget the email address, somebody in Tamis will be able to tell you, but it's Leslie at globalforestgen.org. If any of you know of like new initiatives that are started in the town, or that you're building upon something that's already happening, I would love to know about it. It would just make me happy to think that maybe a little of my inspiration became somebody else's. And also, if you wanted to learn more about Global Force Generation, I think that it's not an imposing, it's like we don't impose on anybody, but every so often we have a newsletter and we try to make it interesting. And we also have like a call that we just recently started trying to communicate more with the people that are interested in Global Force Generation by every couple months, like having Florent and Tino just talk about what's happening. It's just a half an hour, and any of you are welcome to join that if you sign up. If we know to get in touch with you. But I really appreciate having the chance to meet new people and to know that land trusts are alive and well in Norwalk and elsewhere. So thank you. And we're going to come and talk to me afterwards too, so it doesn't have to be a question, but I would love to know. But could anybody just answer this one question I do have, whether there are like is there citizen action to like protect your rivers, or are you just assuming that the agencies are doing a good job? I mean, because water is so essential to my thinking right now, and whenever I read about anything having to do with water, I have follow-up questions. So.
Trout Unlimited has various locations around the country, and there's one here in this area, the Miami chapter, and they do water testing and replanting, and help them do some weeding and planting native species here. And they took the dams out of the river so the fish could go.
Oh, great.
You know,
That's wonderful.
and they save the sound. Sound has a group that does things there. They're tied in the two of them together.
Great.
And there's some of that going on. I'm from Wilton, and like Norwalk, there's a watershed group that, if you want to plant or do anything in your area and you have wetland, you got to pass or you get fined. Cut things down that shouldn't be, or throw things in there that shouldn't be. You need permission. Monitor it.
Cool.
And there are cleanups along the Norwalk River on Earth Day. The rowing clubs cleaned up litter. Norwalk River Watershed Association. So that's more like litter, sort of litter-related cleanups.
Yeah. Yeah. So Tam was just said, how do we get the younger people involved? It's really interesting because in Global Force Generation, we just assumed we would from the beginning. You saw Florent Kaiser, the young guy who was with Tina. He's our CEO. He's young enough to be my son, and I actually think of him as an honorary son. I'm so proud of him. He's like, we just wanted to elevate the younger generations when they showed that they could do it, like not with them like pay their dues for such a long time. But for us, well, okay, so in this culture, of all of these remote villages across the Andes, families are just involved. They just do things together. That's one thing. But if one of you, or maybe more than one of you, want to mention that for the Norwalk Land Trust, it's hard to get younger people interested. So, I just wonder if some young people know that it's an option, and whether, so if there are organizations of young people gathering to do something, or like going to a high school and just saying, hey, look what you could do. You could help and give them a array of like fun possibilities, maybe even working with some younger kids on a project or whatever. I mean, would that help? Would that work?
I think, the Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts, the Eagle Scouts, Eagle Scouts get out there and they're very heart-centered and they really do things for the environment and to be helpful. So, I think that's a really good avenue.
That would be great.
We've been having trouble getting the scouts.
Really?
It's tricky, yeah. I'd say, again, I'm in the Golden Garden Club and I chair youth gardening for them. And we have planting vegetables, we're teaching the kids to give back to the community by starting the food pantry and bringing flowers to the senior center, but I love this idea of getting forward and being more global about it. But I would say, I think more in recent years, every nonprofit is having trouble with getting volunteers, a lot of people back to work.
Right.
And in these communities, it's so tight-knit, parent-driven to get their kids into the Ivy Leagues that all of these great learning, hands-on things are going by the wayside. You should be on the travel team, and this sport, and that sport, and how, you know. So I think we're all fighting, but we're trying to keep the kids engaged in nature and on the Norwalk River Valley Trail. We have Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts doing projects in our garden, and they help us in our club and various things. We try to get into the schools and help them and keep them going, but it's tough.
In Connecticut,
I'm sorry, we're gonna have to leave because we have to leave the building at 8 o'clock. So, if anybody wants to have like a little chat with us while we clean up around you, please forgive us for having to abide by the rules. So, they're all